And so, the carts in ZX are nothing more than an Easter egg, a fun nod to a past game.
It's true that they are an Easter egg, but there has to be a connection. I got it! The carts are more than Easter egg. There is lore behind them.
What are you babbling about?
Right here. The kids indicate that the carts are replicas of a past event. An event from the game, Rockman Battle and Chase.
Objection!
You can't be serious. What you present here is simply a game that is non-canon. Nothing in it holds value.
Hold it!
What makes you so sure it isn't canon? Tell me, is Mega Man and Bass canon?
What are you getting at? Of course it is. It's right there in Mega Man 9.
Well, there you have it. Mega Man and Bass has a direct tie to 8-Ball Man's ending in Battle and Chase. Therefore, by your own logic, the game is canon, and thus, the cards in ZX are more than just Easter eggs.
All this talk of what's canon is very confusing. Back in my day, a cannon shot cannonball.
If you've been pursuing the Mega Man community for really any amount of time, no doubt you've seen discussions like this. Well, hopefully not like that. That was a bit extreme. But the point remains. Lore is one of the most talked about and contested topics, and it's pretty understandable. The games don't often go into depth with lore, and when they do give concrete information, it's rushed, flying by faster than Quickman himself. Information has to be found elsewhere, and it's scattered throughout odd magazine articles, strategy guides, soundtrack booklets, long-gone websites, you name it. It also doesn't help that many of these games' narratives are vague, including what's in the manuals. After all, it's where most old games have their stories, so they could fit as much as possible for gameplay inside the game's cartridge. Yet as time went on, this trend continued, leading many fans to just assume, using their imagination to fill in the blanks. It's a rough battle, tracking stuff down and logging it when Capcom themselves can't be bothered to. During these discussions, sometimes the phrase non-canon gets thrown around. And no, we're not talking about Mega Man's Buster. Non-canon is a matter of saying the source doesn't count. It's not credible. Forget about it. With so much out there, so much media, so many games, what even is canon? If we're going to talk about the canon of Mega Man, it's best to start at the source of the debacle. I'm sure everyone's heard the phrase, but what does it really mean? Definitions of canon vary, as originally, it was a Greek word for measuring rod, or rule. Later, it was adopted by Latin and used primarily alongside religious texts, where it would mean one under the rule. Not to delve into religion here, but it was used as a means to say, what was the Word of God? As time has progressed, the word has become part of various fandoms now, and for all intents and purposes, it now means to catalog events that are true to happen in the series. To find the truth to this, we need to understand what Big Corpo Capcom considers canon. We can bicker all we want, but at the end of the day, they have the final say. To know how they think, we need to look deep into sources, as convenient as it would be to have a canon limited to just what is in the games themselves. Things aren't so clear-cut. Capcom's collection of information is spread vast and wide, and we're at a point in time where people contest what sources are canon. The games and their manuals are regarded as canon, but other sources such as information books, game guides, compendiums will often house a lot of information that the games just gloss over if they cover it at all. Developer interviews can be a means to get direct answers, but due to the way questions are asked and how the answers are given, much of the lore still needs to be pieced together. Official soundtracks sometimes offer dramatizations or background information in their manuals. And lastly, Capcom's official websites, some of which are offline now, would offer information not found anywhere else. Examples being complete bios and timelines posted there. All of these are taken into account by Capcom as lore-based material. And with that, they form an overarching Mega Man timeline. Understanding these sources and utilizing them as our primary foundation of knowledge leads us to our next topic. The timeline. In terms of games, there are two main timelines in the franchise. The Robot Timeline, which includes the games from Classic, X, Zero, ZX, and Legends. and the network timeline, which is Battle Network and Star Force. The network timeline is actually pretty concrete, oftentimes not debated on if something is canon or not because, with a few exceptions, everything is numbered. Or there are obvious clues where the titles go. It's the robot timeline that is our usual culprit of debate. It's clear that Capcom has made an ever-growing story from classic to legends, focusing on story elements that carry from game to game, as well as later series emerging and recalling past events to cement themselves within the timeline. As such, you have a series of events which lead from Light creating Mega Man, all the way to Volnut digging for treasure. This specific sequence of events is what many fans consider the canon. Anything else, forget it. However, Capcom seems to view things differently. In Capcom's eyes, or plans I suppose, the Mega Man timeline, the canon, is a series of branches. It's not a street, but a tree. Developers themselves echo that the series is full of endless possibilities. No series is guaranteed to lead into the next, and as crazy as that sounds, there's plenty of evidence for it. One game that is often written off as non-canon, Command Mission, is considered by Capcom to be a part of the X series. It's included in books. X-Dive refers to it as the future of the series, even though it takes place during the same time as the Zero series. Which even then, despite being its own series of games, Capcom considers an alternate timeline. And don't get mad at me over that. I'm just reporting what's out there. From Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Rockman Online, X-Dive, they all refer to Zero as an alternate timeline. That doesn't mean it's not canon though. Aside from maybe Inti haters or those who think anything after X5 doesn't count, everyone acknowledges Zero as canon. The way Capcom views the timeline is that nothing is concrete. While the Zero series is unquestionably a sequel product of X, X doesn't necessarily always lead to Zero. And that same can be applied to, really, any of the series. By any route taken, the Capcom belief is that you'll always end at Legends. The timeline gets more confusing the more you look into it. Many fans write off numerous games as non-canon because, well, they're side games. Some with a silly premise. But what happens when they're referred to or mentioned by mainline titles? What happens then? That brings us to the next topic, the side games. Some series are pretty straightforward with their placement in the timeline, and it is clear that all their games count. Zero only has 4 numbered titles, ZX has even less. However, the earlier series, mainly Classic, has a bunch of spin-offs that raise many questions. Oftentimes, these spin-offs are cast aside, coined as non-canon and completely ignored, until they can't be. And this, my mega fans, is where a major issue arises in establishing the canon. With no defining rules as to what is canon, games such as the World Series were considered non-canon. Just side games, or an alternate timeline. Even though Anchor and Quint show up in other side games, because it was all side game content, it didn't count. Even years later, the World Series ended, and the characters unique to it appeared in Mega Man and Bass. But again, as a side game, and a statement from the former series producer Keiji Inafune, it was once more called non-canon for years to come. Mega Man and Bass also call back to Battle and Chase with Napalm Man's ending. Later on down the line, Mega Man 9 made a direct call to An Bass. And now, all of a sudden, by connecting the dots, there it was. All canon. Heck, now even Wily Wars with its time travel plot has to be considered canon by this logic. Mega Man X had a similar issue with the Extreme titles being called non-canon until X6 directly referred to one of them. But that's where our issue lies. By cherry-picking out what games were canon, we then later had to revise our timeline massively as new installments made them canon. This issue isn't solely on the fans, so please, don't think I'm targeting you. I also used to consider many games non-canon, like soccer. Developer interviews used to refer to the games as parallel, meaning they would branch off the timeline. This is partly why Mega Man and Bass was considered non-canon for a time. Other games referred to as parallel are the 2 arcade games, Power Battles and Fighters, and Mega Man X Command Mission. And this word alone moves us on to our next topic. Retcons and contradictions. Notorious words indeed. With a series that is over 100 titles, it should be no surprise that plans change or elements are added retroactively. Take this for example. We've had dates for when the first 3 Mega Man games occurred for years. Yet, those dates were completely ignored with the latest Mega Man dev team. Which date is truly correct? It's impossible to say, and in the grand scheme of things, a small date change doesn't really matter. But it shows that while we the fans comb through every little bit of material out there, most of the devs simply don't. Likewise, in cases like this, you have developer interviews that might make a statement, only to later be reversed. In these instances, I have found the best practice is to use interviews and developer comments as loose guidelines. They are credible for insight, but can always be overruled. To return to the word that I brought up, KG and Funa at one point stated Mega Man and Bass was parallel, indicating that it was a split somewhere on the timeline. However, Mega Man 9 released and undid that, establishing the game a spot on the timeline. This is a very hard contradiction, with questions as to why such a change was even made. The other parallel games get brought up frequently enough at that. Books and even X-Dive referring to one of Bass's arcade endings, Capcom considering Command Mission the continuation of the X series, and Zero being an alternate timeline, it makes one wonder what they truly mean by stating that a game is parallel. In my time researching, I've come to believe that the indication with this phrase is that these titles are but a step removed from the timeline. The information in them is valid and noteworthy for the discussion of lore, but in the event of a contradiction, a main title holds authority. So looking at the whole picture, what is canon? And before one of you memes the Sonic tweet, everything is canon! That's not quite it. The short version would be anything developed or co-developed by Capcom, with material from Capcom of Japan trumping any localized contradictions. To provide some examples here, Capcom worked with Inti Creates to develop titles like Zero, ZX, Rockman 9 and 10, as well as outsourcing game production to other companies for titles such as Super Adventure Rockman or the World Series. Other titles where Capcom had no involvement in production would be games like Mega Man DOS, or those weird games published by Strawberry Software which again, had nothing to do with Capcom in terms of development. The fact is, Capcom considers the overall branching timeline of games they take part in development in as the canon, including their supplemental source side material such as the books, the CDs, all that fun jazz. It's pretty clear there are various universes and routes, and unfortunately sometimes the best we can do is highlight the link between one game and another. So looking at the games and how the canon for them works in the eyes of Capcom, what about other media? We have comics, anime, novels, Saturday morning cartoons now with 20% more guts man's ass. Overall, it's generally agreed upon that none of these are canon to the games, or really to each other. But does this mean we should completely ignore them? Oftentimes, these other portrayals are the ones who are able to delve deep into subjects, often questioned by fans, able to provide an answer where there is no other game canon information to contradict it. Obviously, we don't take everything as fact. There will be contradictions here and there, though these works is where cross-comparison should really be applied. The settings of these alternate depictions of events matters when deciding whether or not we should include them in these canon discussions, and how much weight their version should carry. Take Ruby Spears Mega Man for example. The world itself is vastly different. For Proto Man's creation, overall character designs, Sigma, no Cossack, the list goes on. Fully Charged would be in the same vein here. These very clearly take place in their own bubble, and have their own set of rules. Like misspelling Sigma. I will never get over that. It is a normal word. It is a common word. How do you mess that up? Alright. Angry HQ's gone. Happy HQ's back. Let's go back to lore discussion. However, other media seem to really try and follow the rules. They aim to take place within the same world, within reason. Some recent examples would be like the Rockman X novel Irregulars Report, where, aside from some bits of Kane discovering X, it's pretty true to the overall story. Being a novel, there's the opportunity to go into detail on subjects never addressed before, such as how Reploids function, how their production started, Sigma's descent. Mr. Megaman is another one. It takes place after the classic games and even does callbacks to them, changing the art style to match the game's look. Don't let the first volume fool you. It gets serious, and the writers did their homework with the series. Even Megamix and Gigamix take the time to try and abide by the game's rule, or at least what rules were established at the time. While the story itself deviates in terms of timing of events, or how a few things play out, there is still a good chunk of background of the world to explore there. Plus, Arika even helps out with some lore-related sources. Don't believe me? Check out the Complete Works edition. Look whose name's there. To simply brush off all this media aside is disingenuous. I've said this in other videos and I'll reiterate here. I don't claim a lot of these sources as hard fact. But in the absence of hard facts, I do consider them as likely possibilities. And they are 100% fair for discussions. A lot of them are consistent with each other too, which helps establishing credibility, especially when there are multiple writers. And well, we're at the end. Canon can be a hot topic, so hopefully I didn't make your blood boil too much. I do want to take a moment though to thank some support I had for this video. With Sprigween having made the art you see of, well, me. And let me tell you, she can really nail the identical Mega Man style of any type. And Megatroidvania, who drew the custom animations and spoke his mind at the beginning for a funny bit. He does art streams and plays a lot of Capcom games, so be sure to give these two some love. Stay tuned for next time, where we'll dive into a major Mega Man conspiracy theory and look at how it came to be and what we can deduce from it if we nitpick it. Till then, rock on!